Avi Meyer's Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web, www.ntnm.org. You can watch all the shows on YouTube. We're real big on community policing is our next guest. The schedule in the 24th District is undergoing changes, so we suggest that you either check ClearPath or call the Community Policing Office here at 312-744-6321. And my next guest, who we actually have run into, not always in person, but on and off over the course of years in print and whatever else. And actually at Can TV in the old days, I don't know if she still does that Wednesday 7 o'clock deal. But anyway, I would like to introduce all of you to Kathy Posner. Kathy, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me here. And by the way, if anyone who's watching who is involved in 18th District Police, our community policing number is 312-742-5778 for anyone who wants to find out about our beat meetings and CAP meetings.
And you're the chairman there.
I'm not chairman of the total DAC. I'm chairman of like 5 of the committees.
Cool.
In fact, I don't allow anyone to be on any of my committees, so I'm actually like the person who does everything. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. And you've been involved in CAPS, you were saying, since the very
day
beginning.
One, so that's about 20 years.
Very, very cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself besides for CAPS.
I used to own a PR ad agency, did a lot of political consulting, and 10 years ago I decided to retire and to devote my life to philanthropic causes. I sit on about 14 different boards, and all I'm ever doing is begging people for money for my for my events. I also do a daily blog at kathyposner.com, mostly on political issues, where because I am not beholden to anybody, I have no contract with anybody, I can say exactly what I want every single day.
It's a good read.
Which is like really fun to say whatever you want and know that nobody can do anything about it because they can't hurt me in any way. I have my own money. Yes, so they can't punish me. Yeah.
So I basically figured the opposite. I'm broke, so nobody can take anything away from me.
Yes. Well, I'm broke. To the way I'm spending, I'm going to be broke. I'm going to be broke fairly soon. But even a newspaper has to be beholden to its advertisers. They have to sometimes be careful of what they say. I mean, I have, let's say, trashed Groupon any number of times because Groupon is a business model that is certainly not sustainable. But you're not going to see any media that accepts advertising from Groupon or does deals with Groupon ever to be able to say anything bad about them.
No, they're not. But by the way, I do have a distinction. I put out a political paper twice, basically before elections, and my biggest advertiser at the time, and the person who bought the most expensive ad ever, was State Senator Ira Silverstein, whom I totally trashed in the issue.
Okay.
Oh, who, by the way, has not advertised since, but too bad.
Yeah. He might not have known that. Before he took out the ad. Well,
let's put it this way. I'd never tell people what I'm going to write, but
right.
Listen, if he wanted to be a good state senator, I wouldn't have written that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's very simple. All I did was accurately report what was going on. So so you've got a whole bunch of issues here you like to say?
What I also wanted to explain is what I can. There are a number of times that I break news, but there are also mostly what I do is take stories that are in the news and analyze them because I can spend the time analyzing numbers. I'm very analytical the way that media can't. Or I can take sentences that were used in a story and point out why it's totally wrong. For example...
Oh, that's right, because you've done the PR thing, so you understand exactly how that operates.
I understand how it works. You never believe anything except in your magazine that you read. For instance, there were stories in the month of July about... how women were filing a suit against Chicago Fire Department because they felt they were being discriminated against because of the physical agility test to become a fireman. And one of the lines that they used is that the physical agility test required tasks that were not required by a fireman. So that's like a throwaway line, and people would say, hey, maybe they are discriminating against women, that there are things in there. Well, what I was able to do is I pulled up every single task and listed it. I found YouTube footage of certain women performing the candidate physical agility test. I showed how it's not discrimination against women, it's discrimination, or not discrimination, against anyone who can't do that kind of task. Well, if you can't do that kind of task, you shouldn't be a policeman, or a fireman in this case. But I know there have been cases where there's been lawsuits against police because of the physical agility tests. There's certain things that women can't do, and women should accept that instead of claiming that it's discrimination. So I can take, so I'm saying that's an example of where I lay it out very carefully, and then you can say, wait, maybe these women can't pass the test. And if I'm in a burning building, I want the strongest man possible coming and saving me.
I'm sorry I didn't set aside more time for you, because frankly I could talk about that topic for the next 3 years.
Yeah, and you know.
By the way, I very much agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, then you could claim the same way that someone who has a learning disability is being discriminated against because they can't pass the civil service exam. I mean, you can, parse anything down to its, littlest word, to just one single word, and then try to claim, well, there's discrimination against somebody. I mean, we've certainly become way too suing happy, but I do sit on the board of the Chicago Legal Clinic, so I do support attorneys.
Well, that's cool. And by the way, I'll tell you, I was actually talking to a girl, and I was thinking about asking her out, and all of a sudden she's got this sue happy mentality I wanted no part of.
Right, because you don't know. That's one thing that's very hard for men. You don't know if you're approaching a woman. If she does find you attractive and is responsive, fine. But if she doesn't, all of a sudden she could say that you're harassing her. How are you as a man supposed to know who you are allowed to approach? So I think it's hard for men.
And in the meantime, there are people who have met people that might have been able to get married, but you're not able to do that because of the extraordinarily strange rules of acting in society.
Right. Now, one of the ones where I actually broke a story recently is that on July 1st, Metra came out with their new ethics rules. They were forced to, through a law that State Representative Jack Franks had passed. They were then forced, Metra, to participate in all the ethics rules that other state agencies and state groups had to go. So because I can spend the time of reading all of these kind of manuals that are 100 pages long that nobody else reads, I find things. And what I found interesting in the manual is there was an entire section on how Metra employees were absolutely forbidden to take any gifts of any kind from all these prohibited sources. And then there was a little footnote that pointed out that they were not allowed to take more than $25 a year from prohibited sources. But in the main part, it said you can't take anything. So if you can't take any gift, even though $25 is a small amount, how could you say, by the way, the aggregate of all the gifts can't come to more than $25?
Wow.
So I pointed that out, and I sent a copy of the blog to State Representative Jack Franks, who then started an investigation into the Metra Ethics Manual to see what other mistakes there might be in the manual.
Wow.
You see, I mean, so again, I just can spend the time on that. Another one that I broke was there had been stories about the Chicago Housing Authority holding hearings on the new lease requirements for 2011 for tenants, including whether there should be drug testing. Well, I went to the CHA website and start going through all the pages in the original draft of the revised lease, which I think was about 87 pages long, and I found a whole section that was stamped approved by Board of Directors July 19th. Well, it was like July 2nd. They hadn't even met yet, and they made the mistake of showing how they were obviously accepting. I did a story on, and I ended up hearing from the Chief General Counsel for the Chicago Housing Authority that they had made a mistake, that it should have said draft, submitted, instead of saying approved by the Board of Directors. So it's just fun for me to go through massive things, when the Inspector Generals come out with reports, or Auditors General come out with a report. I'll go through all the pages.
Wow, that's very important. I was explaining to somebody, for instance, I don't like to watch TV news at all.
Yeah, I don't watch.
Because I'm not only not going to learn anything, I am going to basically get a false representation. And I explain what I do, and I read, 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 and they said, that's a lot of work. And I said, that's the only way you're going to really find out. If you're not going to work at something, you're not going to be able to find out very much about it.
Right. When Mayor Emanuel first took over and had put out his 100-day plan, which again was maybe 150 pages, I went through it. I did 3 blogs on it because I had to pull out so many sections of it that made absolutely no sense at all. And nobody had paid attention because nobody ever reads 150 pages.
By the way, I actually went through, I have the entire whole state pork budget, and I actually went through every single item.
Oh, okay. So
which so I think we're the only two that do that.
Yeah,
I didn't know
nobody
you
does
do
it.
that. That's great.
Oh yeah, no, I
By the way,
do
but
it
I
all the
can't do
time.
it as much as you. I just picked this particular thing because the aforementioned state senator, I was very curious about to see what he was hiding and what he was trying to accomplish. But in any event, you know, I really want to encourage people to check out your column.
Oh, thank you. KathyPosner.com, KathyPosner.com. And if you hit to join the button to join the fan club, you'll get a daily email alert saying what the topic of the blog is, plus other things of interest that might be happening in Chicago, like my making appearance on Northtown News.
Which is very cool stuff. I also want to thank Kelly Tarrant for bringing you here today. And hey, Kelly, how you doing? Always good to see you. And also, we didn't even talk about, but I'm a fan of Scott Lee Cohn myself,
right. And I met Scott because I wrote a blog about him. I'm a Republican, very conservative Republican, but I wrote a blog about him, not knowing him at all, saying that I thought that he should stay in, and I supported his staying in the race for lieutenant governor, and he called me, and we went out to lunch and instantly became very close friends.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Anyway, we're running out of time. Thank you very much, Sonny. Thank you, Kathy. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Take care.